Well, enjoy everyone. Thank you.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry, guys, it's a little, have to navigate a few different screens here. And then I did get another message from a student. So Wainima, I was wondering if contemporary Native issues, if we could move that presentation to the next one.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I was working a few different screens and things here. Just 1 second. We'll make sure we can share this. Okay, I have sound share here.
Jay Estongo, hello, and how is everyone? Hope you are well. Welcome. Today I will be presenting my extremophile detection project conducted at NICC aligned with NASA astrobiology goals. This research examines how organisms survive in harsh environments on Earth and how this informs planetary habitability studies. This is the detection of extremophiles in environmental water samples using molecular techniques. So what are extremophiles? They sound pretty rad, right? Well, they thrive in extreme heat, salinity, acidity, and radiation. They're key to NASA because they help us model what types of life could survive beyond Earth. By studying how they withstand extreme stress conditions, we better understand biosignatures, survival limits, and potential Martian microbial analogs. These little guys, they can survive in the craziest conditions, and they produce stress-resistant enzymes that can be used for all sorts of developments. The last big extremophile discovery led us to tag polymerase and gene editing. So yeah, I mean, these guys are scary looking. This is Nereis sanders, or ocean worm. It has a face only a mother could love, but it's definitely a clue to the possibility of alien life forms. They can be found in industrial wastewater and natural systems. NASA connection. This project directly parallels NASA's goals. Mars has high salinity, radiation, and oxidizing soil. These are conditions that many extremophiles can endure and survive. Our methods mimic NASA's microbial detection strategies for Mars and icy moons. This slide kind of gives a look at our workflow. Each step is optimized to reduce inhibitors and maximize DNA yield, which is critical for detecting low abundance extremophiles. Our methodology included the sample collection, sending fearless intern out into the field. They may die, may not. Luckily, they didn't. That was me. DNA extraction, PCR amplification, detection via gel electrophoresis, quantification, and next-gen sequencing, which is like the next step we haven't done yet. Looking forward to that next semester, actually. Sample collection, key here is avoiding contamination and ensuring you have enough volume and you don't get shot at while you're collecting the sample. Industrial water typically has low microbial concentrations, meaning filtration is essential to concentrate these extremophiles. Use sterile glass bottles, 1 to 2 liters of volume, preserved in 70% ethanol at negative 20 degrees Celsius. Here's a picture of our undisclosed sample site where I may or may not have been in danger. No comment. Industrial waters contain humic acids, metals, and oils that inhibit PCR extraction, and we must remove these. Our kits were chosen because they work specifically very well with environmental samples. They have the necessary ingredients for mechanical and chemical lysis, which allows us to remove industrial inhibitors and produce high-quality DNA for PCR collection and interpretation downstream. So here we have centrifuge, little vortex and microcentrifuge, which you will spend a lot of time using if you do an experiment like this. And here's an ideal experiment setup, which if you were a chef, they'd call it mise en place. If you're on the res, your auntie might calling it having your shit together. This is PCR amplification. Universal primers are used, and these 16S primers detect both bacteria and archaea. These internal controls ensure amplification failure is due to inhibitors and not the absence of DNA. So this DNA concentration here is from literally the tiniest, like 1 nanoliter of water. And here's a picture of the PCR running in the thermocycler, and that's just going to tell us what's in that water. It's pretty cool, really. This is an image showing agarose gel electrophoresis. This is part of further inhibitor management, and that really is the most important part of environmental PCR, because even small amounts of metals or organic pollutants can block amplification. So we actually run the PCR product in 1.2% agarose gel through this electrophoresis machine, and it creates the DNA ladder that allows visualization of the DNA bands of microorganisms that thrive in the extreme environments, aka extremophiles. Radical, dude. So the presence of these bands actually confirms microbial DNA. Variation likely reflects environmental stress, pollutant levels, and microbial abundance. So the successful 1500 BP 16S rDNA bands are over here. Yeah. And then brighter bands mean more DNA and more microorganisms present. This confirms the identification of organisms that live in extreme conditions. So next steps include next-gen sequencing, NGS, which is going to help us identify the specific species of extremophile. Our sample had a pH of 14, which is a very extreme environment indeed. It ate right through my PPE boots and 2 of my toenails. So now that we've located rDNA in the sample, we must identify name the specific microorganisms and extremophiles we found, because then we know what they're used for. And then once that's completed, all the research will be turned over to NASA as they work to further Mars exploration. So in conclusion, this work that has been done over the last year has been pretty intense and really a huge learning process, and very, honestly, really fun. But it has established NICC's functional microbiology lab and workflow. It has built an indigenous microbial research lab, and it parallels NASA-aligned training and astrobiology objectives. Plus, in our lab, we were able to identify and establish a clear and a successful protocol to find the extremophiles, and we were also detected microbial 16S RNA. So that's pretty cool. I mean, this is high-level stuff that I don't honestly fully understand every part of yet, but as I go along and learn more, I am absolutely fascinated. These advancements, as we move forward through the next-gen sequencing, identifying the specific species of extremophile, expand our sampling, and develop qPCR pollutant assays, these will help refine microbial identification possibilities and strengthen NICC's contributions to planetary analog studies, as well as our abilities to complete environmental health monitoring and our greater understanding of our environment as a whole. So to close out, I just want to say a huge Mado and Nawa thank you to the NASA AHEC TCU Building Bridges Program, the NASA Nebraska Space Mini Grant, Dr. Megan. Meg, help me, I don't like this rock, Mary. Dr. Ezaz, OG Zazzle Hake, my lab mom, Kendra Johnson, Dr. Martha Stoney Cooper, Dr. Kim Murray, Mr. Dr. Chicken Alfredo Bonilla, Kudzia, Dr. F. Chavez Ramirez, Dr. Giamara Galvez, my late father, Daryl Jean Tilley, and late grandmother, Lou Jean Fixico, for watching over me as I go out to collect these samples and try not to burn down the lab on accident. My Memoji, Georgina Tilley, for watching my babies, critters, and keeping my head on straight. My Chipon and my Wotko Hoktuchi, my Grayson and Lenora, my son, and my little raccoon daughter girl for traveling with me and supporting their mom's college goals. My friends and family, and my inspiring classmates and mentors I've met along the way, including, but not limited to, Levon Snake, Lonnie, Rosalind, and the late great Hank Miller, who now voices the angel on my shoulder and reminds me to get off the stump and be in the treetops, as well as all the amazing humans at both PNCC and NICC who believed in me and helped me make my science researcher dreams a reality. Mado, I love y'all.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wish you was there. Thank you so much, Casey. So I'll take questions on behalf of Casey. If anyone has any question, please shoot.
And I think I speak on behalf of everyone to please extend a big shout out to Casey for all the work that she put into this and also staging the experience too. I see you guys all at South Sioux City campus there too. So for everybody involved in that project, thank you for sharing it with us.
So we will move on to Kendra Johnson. She'll make things much more easier. So that was the whole experiment outline and everything that we did in a most simplest way. And Kendra is gonna talk about what kind of experiments and methodologies we use, the research stuff, the technical stuff. She'll try to make it as simple as possible. So Kendra, you're the next.
All right. It says my video is on, but I don't see me. Okay. I don't know how to share in. Uh, there we
See
go.
a yep, green box there.
Okay. Does it say that I'm sharing? It says it here. Can you guys see it?
We can see your slide in PowerPoint with the little slides to the side. So you might need to hit the present button, but I think we're in the right spot.
Now is that
Perfect.
okay? All right. So Casey covered most all of this. And just I'll say hello. I'm Kendra, and so y'all will know this might be a little rough. I've had a migraine for 9 out of the last 10 days, so I'm trying to remember my stuff. So we have been working on the detection of extremophiles in environmental water samples using molecular techniques. The process to do this for the RNA isolation, it takes 2.5 hours. There are 10 or more steps to acquire the RNA pellet. Pellet would be the little bitty piece you can see, and it's just tiny in the bottom of your Eppendorf tube. There's 27 or more steps to prepare the pellet for the nanodrop reading. That's the reading that Casey showed earlier, and I'll talk a little bit more about here in a little bit. Then there's 11 plus steps to run the pellet to get the reading, and 18 or more steps to make the agarose gel. What you're looking for is pure RNA DNA results. Those will fall in between 1.85 and 2. Our next steps further after this, what we've done so far is we are going to learn how to extract and read the DNA and how to name the extremophiles. And you need to always, always keep a journal. Like I wound up with 2 books plus a little notepad, and I'm still not sure that I understand everything that's going on. There's a lot to it. There's all of us here one day when we're working on everything. Casey and I so far have made 3 to 4 trips to NICC South Sioux City. It was really awesome getting to get up there and see everybody and actually see the building since we live in Oklahoma and we do all of our work virtually. We spent a week each time, and there was a minimum of 8 hours per day spent doing this. Um, as Oz was talking in KC2, some of the places that we found, we did all of our research so far in Nebraska. There's the industrial waste dumping site. There was a location near a meat packaging industry and tannery. We also did a pond, marshland area, and a creek. Environmental water sources that can have extreme environments such as pH, temperature, chemical abundance, and this is what we're looking for because we want to find out what lives and still there because things should not be able to survive. The DNA and the amplification RNA, they are found in microorganisms such as bacteria. This is what I'm talking about when they shouldn't be able to survive. But even in boiling temperatures, when you're cooking, nothing should be able to survive, but it can. And the sequence application, amplicon, is done by Sanger or next-gen sequencing. That's where we name the genes. And when you do that, it also shows everything about them, every little bit of information, proteins, genes that are available. We go through the workflow like this. Start with the DNA quantification, the PCR of the RNA, the agarose gel, DNA purification from the gel, next-gen sequencing, blast analysis, species, and genus family identification. There's our industrial waste dump in the beginning. There's our setup for us to do the DNA from the isolate DNA from the microorganisms. The DNA concentration measurement, it's that's the one I talked about earlier, that it needs to fall between 1.85 and 2 to be pure and have no contamination. Then the polymerase chain reaction, and then making of the gel electrophoresis comes next. When we make the gel, if you see the upper photo there of it, that runs negative to positive. That's what the cables are coming out of there. So we put our sample inside a teeny tiny little well in that gel after we make it, and then turn the little machine on, and it runs from positive side to from negative side to positive side to get this right here, the reading. After that, this is what we have left to learn to do, is the next gen sequencer. And then after that will be the identification of the species. Excuse me. That is available online. It has every species known to man, and it will give every detail about that species. We're reading or looking for our pellet in this picture here, and then in this one next to it, that's another show of the gel. You can see there's 5 rows present there. The first row, which has the most lines you can see, that's the ladder. The ladder is at 1,000 count, and the one to the right of that is the control. The control should always be 0, should be nothing there. And then the next 3 are samples. So you can see in our first 2 samples, they are very well lit, and they are higher above the ladder, which means their count is 1,500. The way that we see this is through red dye. It attaches to DNA and DNA only. And therefore, when this is ran, you know exactly where your DNA is at and how much you have. This is part of what we're going to learn coming up, how to do the DNA gel extraction and how to use the next gen sequencer, and then how to identify our species and do a confirmation that we did find extremophiles. I'd like to give special thanks to the NASA, excuse me, AHEC TCU Building Bridges, the NASA Nebraska Space Mini Grant, Dr. Megan Muri Mazariejos, Dr. Izaz Kutsia, Dr. Martha Durr, Professor Alfredo Bonilla, Professor Kim Muri, and to my lab bestie and lab daughter, Casey. Also to Dr. Stacy Brash. She taught me how to do speeches, although today I'm not doing very, very well. And I apologize, my cats are attacking me here. To my kids and my parents, and my grandkids, everybody for supporting me in my college adventure and for these trips that we've been taking. It's been amazing. It's been confusing. It's been literally blood, sweat, tears, and I walked out twice, but it was all worth it at the end. And to the late and amazing Hank Miller, I did not get the opportunity to have a lot of time with him, but I very much enjoyed the things that he taught and helped me to learn in NASA. And to all my NICC professors, staff, and fellow students, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing, Kendra, and Casey too. I see, let's see. Yeah, I see some good stuff in the chat here. And I love the extra shout out to the speech instructor because sometimes we don't think about how those classes work together, and you did a great job. So thank you very much for sharing.
Yes. Yeah, I've never been embarrassed by much, but you know, speeches can make you nervous. So,
Yeah, I was saying
course.
thank you so much. I'm really proud of you. You did a really great job. Awesome.
thank you.
Outstanding. Love you guys.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate you guys. For those of you who are sharing, it can be intimidating to come up here and share. And so it's great practice, but it's funny because it's also something we're doing throughout the semester. We're talking with people about it. So it's a great opportunity to share and kind of, conquer a little bit of that stage fright too. So thank you guys very much for doing that. Like we talked about earlier, we do have some scheduling things we're going to move around. So we are going to bump up contemporary Native issues. So Wainima is going to give a little bit of information on her students who are presenting here. And then we'll go to Intro to Sociology. And then here, I'll show you guys since, doing a little bit of skipping around, but that's all right. We'll get to everybody. Okay, so we'll jump into Contemporary Native Issues, go up to Intro to Sociology, then we'll do Intro to Native American Studies, Omaha Culture and Tradition, and then end with General Chemistry. All right, so with that being said, Nima, feel free to take it away, and we'll hear from the Contemporary Native Issue students.
My screen didn't, well, anyway, my screen's not behaving, but welcome everybody, and thank you for your patience and your time, for letting our students show what they've learned. I'm sitting here in total awe of all the things that NICC is doing at this little bitty teeny tiny college of ours. And I think that if, speaking for the Omahas, I'm really proud of what this college is able to do, working alongside with our sister campus here, with Isanti as well. So Indians, we can do this. We bring the right people, and of course we bring education to our students, and look what we can do. This is just awesome. I'm totally amazed. So I want to first of all say thank you to everybody who has presented. I've learned so much just sitting here. None of this is my field except for history, culture, traditions, language, etc. That's where I live. So I work in the Native American Studies department. My boss is Carlton, and I work with a few other really good people in that department. And one of the main things that we're always really concerned about is nation building. And nation building can, we're focused on it. And it can mean so many things. And gosh, excuse me, my throat is not behaving well. But one of the things in nation building is to always know what your culture is, know what how the culture operates, but you can't do that unless you know your history. And so we have spent in these three courses that I'm privileged to teach. My students have had to go back to the past, both say for Omaha culture and tradition, which is a lot of fun. And then, of course, the class that Bridget's going to go through with you now on Native issues. So it isn't everything that's stuck in the past. There's a lot of things that come forward. And then finally, before I turn it over to Bridget, um, one of the things that NICC has been touting a lot, and things that we in Megan, your trainings that we come to, and we do cultural connections and we do organization, all these things. We've had to do a lot of reading about indigenization, and it really makes me happy that we're at least pushing in this direction. Indigenization for me and how it has helped me move my courses forward is that I'm able to go back to a different learning methodology, which is very traditional in reading through how each generation of Indigenous people from time immemorial taught the next generation. One of the things that comes through loud and clear is that it was cooperative, it was supportive, and it was connected. So one generation had the responsibility to teach the next using that kind of methodology. We allowed for practice, we allow for constant error, and hopefully there's no embarrassment or minimization of the learner. So my approach then is to do everything together. And despite the first part, it's lots of lectures and videos and papers, etc. About the last quarter or maybe 30% of the class, they start working together because they develop their final exam. I don't do this. They do it. And they tell me what's important in their learning and what they are going to be taking away from each of the classes. And of course, it's not a passive part. I'm not passive on my part. They got sick and tired of me saying, are you moody? Are you meeting? Are you meeting? Do you need more time? Shall I join you? Do you need any questions? And of course, not really. So they met outside of class. They exchanged. So it's an interdisciplinary approach as well, because they had to do a lot of time management, exchanging telephone calls, emails, getting things back and forth, agreeing on all kinds of things, or saying, let's use this, let's toss that. So what you're going to see is their product. This was their final. This is what was important to students. So in the generation, obviously you can see where I'm at in teaching and working with the younger generation. I gave them the teaching, the knowledge, and now it was up to them to see what they would do with that. And I think you're in for a real treat, at least in terms of what my students have done. And I think Bridget was going to work with, who was the other person you're going to work with, Bridget? Do you recall? I don't, because I'm nervous as well, for you in a good way. So,
Elaine said she may.
okay.
I don't know if she made it though.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if she
I'm
has
here,
either.
Bridget.
Okay.
Oh,
Hi.
yes. And so these two are going to represent all of the other students that cannot be here, but you will get to see their work, and you'll see, I think, just from how these two will present, that there was lots of communication with each other, lots of interaction, lots of engagement, the things that we toss around here. But I turn it all around and present it to you in an Indigenous methodology that we use. So I don't sit down and they don't compete, which is the formal style of learning in this Euro-American dogma of education. They work together. So and it works. At least I'm impressed with them. So Bridget and Elaine, you guys go ahead.
All right. Halito. So Chifayat Bridget Hoshontomba, Oklachata, Blackfoot, Cherokee, Chap Potawatomi, Adopti Ohoyosia, Shawnee, Oklahoma, Atali, Kinlikia, Carson, California, Amitili. Hello, my name is Bridget Hoshontomba, and I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, Blackfoot and Cherokee descended, and my stepfamily is Potawatomi. I live in Shawnee, Oklahoma, but I am from Carson, California. My dad named me Hoshontomba, Hoshonti meaning cloud, and Omba meaning rain. So rain cloud because I cried a lot as a child. Hopefully I won't do that presenting today. But I'm gonna get my screen shared and show you guys this presentation that we put together, and Elaine and I will go ahead and go through this. If I can figure out how to get it in the presentation window.
And I gotta figure out how I can see this. I don't know what I did. Help.
Okay, let's
All I
see.
see is a big screen of the chat. How do I get back? Anybody?
You might be able to exit the chat and then click back into the Zoom button on the bottom.
Okay. Oh, there I am. Well, hopefully. While Bridget figures out her share.
I have so many tabs open that it couldn't find the Chrome tab that I was looking for.
Bridget, you can also pull up the presentation and then just click share that screen. And if it's the first one pulled up, right, then it'll just share whatever's on that screen, but it'll pop up right away.
Are not mirror images of each other. Oh.
Looks like she might have accidentally closed off here. And I guess while we're waiting for Bridget to jump back in here, she might have just exited off. Oh, there she is.
Oops. Yeah, I have the share thing. It just, there we go. So I guess it needed to be restarted. That's crazy. Okay. Whatever works.
Now I can't see anything. Megan, which one do I push down here? Or which one of these? Not share. Participants?
You should, if you click the little Zoom icon on the bottom or just hover over it, you should see something that shows you the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, it's gonna force me to do full screen anyways. Okay. All right, so okay, that's not wow. Wow. It didn't do this yesterday when we presented this in class. This is so bad. Like, why? Where's the pause button? Okay, I think it's paused. Hopefully it won't autoplay. That's so weird. But this is Seeing the Strands. This is the student learning outcomes and critical thought of students in YNEMA's NASP 2010 course. We go over all of the student learning outcomes. So everybody chose a student learning outcome. This is everybody that is in the class. And student learning outcome one. Okay, we're not pausing. It won't let me like take down my window for the Zoom thing, and I have no pause function. Let's hope it stays there. I don't remember what student learning outcome number one was, and it just disappeared, but it was concerning some of the more modern issues like regarding blood quantum and citizenship in particular. Blood quantum, as I'm sure most of you know, is one of the bases of tribal citizenship, and it's a remnant of US government policies that divide by blood. A lot of tribes are pushing for lineal descent, which is essentially the same thing. You have to prove your lineal descent anyways. The only difference is that with blood quantum, it is divided up. So often you have tribes that can't enroll all of their citizens, even if they recognize them as being from that tribe, just because they still use blood quantum. So that is something that needs to result in individual constitution changes among the tribes. Enrollment criteria is a pretty hot topic right now, especially with all of the ongoing pretendian issues that have come up recently. Bagged and tagged American Kennel Club, it's the only other anything that is tracked by blood is going to be animals. So AKC registration, Kentucky Derby, to basically prove how pure that breed is. No other ethnic group is tracked in this way. Key takeaways and discussion for this learning outcome is the negative impact that blood quantum has on tribes all around. However, reform is not quite simple just because we have over 540 tribes that are federally recognized. That doesn't count state recognized tribes or tribes that have neither recognition from the state or feds. And every single one of them has a different constitution, and the constitution is what dictates enrollment. The student learning outcome number 2 is regarding federal, tribal, and state relations. And we explored legal and political frameworks to define tribal sovereignty and self-determination, to assess relationships and how it influences governance, jurisdiction, and policymaking, as well as nation building at large. The legal and political framework for tribal sovereignty and self-determination was a reaction to the principles known as the Marshall Trilogy. Johnson v. McIntosh is recognizing the tribes as distinct people, but it was only land occupancy rights, and the title to the land was held by the federal government. This is something that you learn all the way from the very early classes with any of the Native Studies degrees, all the way up through the top, because it is very much intertwined in everything. So this is a very important one. Some of the landmark legal texts include the U.S. Constitution's Commerce Clause, which regulates Indian tribes, Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, that was from 1831. And it defined tribes as domestic dependent nations, so basically sovereignty without independence. And then Worcester versus Georgia of 1832, which defines the exclusive federal tribal relationship, but still places power with the federal government. The two big things with the relationships between the federal government and tribes is going to be trust obligations, because the federal government maintains the trust responsibility to all tribal nations because of these treaties, as well as Public Law 280. That's more so concerning the state and tribal relationships, and there are not many Public Law 280 states. As you can see, that would be Alaska, California, Minnesota, Nebraska, Oregon, and Wisconsin that operate under Public Law 280. And that is regarding state jurisdiction over Indian country and does complicate tribal governance and causes conflict. So, there's not too many states, but that's still 6 states where all of the tribes there are impacted. The issue with policy is that it turns self-determination, particularly with the Marshall Trilogy, into a policy choice rather than an inherent right. And it's something that needs to be negotiated and operates under colonial legal constraints instead of the more traditional way that tribes have run things. So many tribes adopted their tribal constitutions and corporations using the colonial framework set forth by the United States government, which is not very well in alignment with the traditional clans and how we would settle disputes and everything else. Today, the issues that we see from this are often regarding jurisdiction, taxation, criminal authority, and land trust issues. Student learning outcome number 3 was to evaluate the legacy and ongoing impact of boarding schools. We went over federal legislation like the Allotment Act, relocation, Public Law 280, and termination, and also looked at what Native communities are doing to reclaim, preserve, and revitalize history, culture, and language. So this map is of North America, and you can see like where the US is, it's very dense. Before 1492, there were an estimated 8 million Native Americans living in North America. Now, after contact, you can see how diminished things were, as by the year 1890, the estimated Native American population was 237,000. In Oklahoma, which is mostly purple, so mostly reservation land, we did not have this until the McGirt ruling. So this is a, big win for Oklahoma, showing on the map like, oh, it's all, native land. But that was only recognized just a few years ago because Oklahoma had been violating treaties this entire time. Forms of genocidal actions that are taken against the tribes are colonization, war and disease, through federal acts, and assimilation. And the way that this was done is through disease, conflicts that would lead expressly to the killing of indigenous people, land possession and dispossession, and the taking of resources. War and disease ties right into colonization, as they were often battles for battles for the land and resources. One of the big things as far as disease go and is well known is the smallpox blankets. A lot of these conflicts arose from manifest destiny, and these issues often led to bounties on Native Americans as a fear tactic. The federal acts that played a big part include the Indian Removal Act and the Dawes Act. And in order to further continue assimilation, they used Christianity, private ownership, boarding schools, and blood quantums, all of which we still see the effects of today. Approximately 97% of North American natives were killed, died from disease, were displaced, or terminated in the most horrendous act of genocide in human history, and yet the school system does not teach this. This is the black eye of the federal government that they wish to keep their dirty little secret. Winston Churchill said history is written by the victors, and we see that every day. Student learning outcome number 4 is the one that Elaine did, so I will turn this over to her.
Thank you, Megan.
Are you in here, Elaine?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't unmute it. Okay, student learning outcome number 4. Students will examine health challenges facing Native communities, including mental health, suicide, drug use, the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people, and overall health disparities, and propose culturally informed solutions rooted in community, resilience, and advocacy. The challenges in our communities. The United States has a long history of violence and oppression of Indigenous people, the effects of which are still apparent today. The systematic inequity continues, with the U.S. currently failing to uphold many of the treaty obligations to natives. This country is also not fully implementing policies intended to support and recognize Indigenous populations, especially in the urban areas. A changing landscape. Key demographics of Iowa's Indigenous population. In Iowa communities, there was a population increase of 82.4% between 2010 and 2023. Growth reflects the growing recognition and representation of Indigenous people within the communities. And the median range was 30 years old the median age of Iowa's indigenous people in 2023. 38.9%, the percentage of indigenous people included married couples and families with children included in the 2022 economic conditions, housing diversity, and aging populations. In the communities of Iowa, these statistics highlight the importance of Native American representation and the need for continuous support and recognition within the communities. Urban communities poverty plus poverty. Poverty does not just impact those on the reservation, but the Native population at large. In 2023, over 3/4 of the urban population was living in poverty. Revenue generation amounted to $30,900 for families of two adults and 3 children. Most indigenous people lack secure full-time work. The most common jobs among the natives in the urban areas are warehouse jobs, hospitality, fast foods, nursing homes, hospital janitorial work, and other low-paying positions. Many natives live in shelters or with families because of these financial hardships. The risk involved is access to drugs, alcohol, guns, and weapons, and homelessness have become a direct link for many of the Native families living in urban communities today. The silent crisis deafening inaction, highlighting the epidemic of investigated murders and missing and the harmful judicial blame tactics. Deaths, murders, and drug overdose have become an everyday problem for the homeless natives on the streets. Within this past year, there have been 4 young men murdered in daylight hours, surrounded by numerous witnesses in the community. 2 young Native girls were found in the basement of an apartment building and cut into several pieces and described as mutilated bodies. 1 young Native girl was thrown from a 3-story apartment window and died on impact. One major problem has been the epidemic of missing and murdered women and girls. We were informed of one young lady, a 13-year-old girl, that had been decapitated with her head in a garbage bag next to her body. Many of these women and girls are being kidnapped and sold as sex slaves. Young men have also become part of the missing people. These are everyday occurrences, but the judicial system does nothing to investigate murdered and missing people, Native people. The only response the Native communities have heard is, well, they chose to be on the streets, and what happened to them is their own fault. Or she was doing drugs. What did she expect her to happen? Resilience, leadership, and the call for equity. Sources of Indigenous resilience. Indigenous families exhibit powerful resilience rooted in their deep-seated cultural values, profound respect for family and elders, a strong, persuasive sense of community, a shared responsibility to care for the children, deep respect for the environment, Mother Earth, and all living things, which reinforces a powerful sense of belonging. Leadership and contributions. Despite systematic racism, Native people have consistently demonstrated leadership and strength through their significant contribution to society. The mandate for change. It is critical that we work to remove structural barriers. Actionable goal. Working toward equity and justice requires supporting all aspects of Native well-being. A path to equity and healing, the enduring legacy of trauma, current struggles, sadness, anxiety, anger, and shame are direct manifestations of historical and enduring trauma. Forced migration, broken treaties, loss of land, language, and cultural. Studies confirm that this generational trauma results in the disappropriation, poor health, and well-being outcomes for Native children, youth, and families across all measures. Achieving equality for Native communities is possible, but requires commitment across four key areas: systematic change, public policy and system changes, resources, collaboration between tribal, federal, and state, allyship, awareness regarding structural inequalities, cultural solutions, priorities, and implemented Native views. Resilience, leadership, and the call for equity. Sources of Indigenous leadership. I thought we did that one. We did that. Do you want me to continue, Bridget?
Technical difficulties. Yeah, if you want to do the next one, you can.
Okay, I'll do it for you.
Okay.
Student learning outcome. Students will evaluate contemporary economic development initiatives such as Indian gaming, tribal enterprises, and nation building efforts, considering their effectiveness in promoting substantiality, equality, and cultural integrity, and strengthening self determination and tribal self governments. Contemporary economic development in Indian country, Osage Nation plus other tribal members. Focus is on Indian gaming, tribal cult enterprises, and nation building. The number one goal is to evaluate effectiveness in substantiality, equity, culturality, integrity, and sovereignty. Indian gaming, major revenue source for many tribes, funds education, healthcare, and housing. Some of the challenges are resilience on gaming, state, federal regulations, tribal enterprises, diversification of oil and gas, Osage, tourism, retail, renewable energy, builds economic independent beyond casinos. Nation building, strengthening government structures, language, cultural revitalization, leadership, develop and education investments. The Osage Nation, oil wealth managed through Osage Minerals Council, Osage casinos as economic driver, language and cultural programs strengthen identity. Other tribal nations, Cherokee Nation, diversified enterprises, Navajo Nation, renewable energy projects, Seminole Tribe, gaming, entertainment industry, evaluation criteria, sustainability, equity, cultural integrity, and self-determination. Key takeaways and discussion. Economic development strengthens sovereignty and self-determination. Gaming is important, but diversification is critical. Nation building ensures cultural survival alongside economic growth. Success, balance between modern tools and traditional values.
The last student learning outcome was student learning outcome number 6, which is reflecting and developing informed perspectives on American Indian education systems, electoral participation, and proposing strategies to enhance cultural revitalization in as many ways as possible as the basis of civic empowerment and self-determination within our communities. Traditional Native education versus boarding schools. We see that traditional learning has life teachings, oral stories and history, ceremony, and a focus on elders, whereas boarding schools was forced assimilation, resulting in a loss of language, loss of culture, and loss of identity. This photo is of the Oglala Indian Trading School provided by the Pine Ridge School, and Kiara, who was working on this one, provided that. The impact of boarding schools is a direct genocidal action, such as those in SLO 3, taken against Native communities for the purpose of extinction through through and causing generational trauma, identity crisis, and erasure in American education. Kill the Indian, save the man. Today, tribes are reclaiming lost teachings. For example, Ho Chunk has language classes, immersion camps, and elders teaching again, bringing back the traditional ways while also weaving them into our tribal college curriculum, using modern tools and digital resources to carry our culture forward. Choctaw Nation does this as well, and so do many other tribes. The photo that is used on this slide is actually my great aunt Viola. She is the one with the dark hair in the left side there, the one that's up at the top. She's a little darker than the other girl. I never knew about her growing up. I knew my great grandmother, her sister, but I never knew about my great aunt. And we had a much larger conversation about this in the course, but to keep it brief, my great grandmother did not talk much. And I had always assumed because of where my family is at that maybe she was at a boarding school, but it was actually much worse than that. She was married to a white man at the age of like 14 or 15, and my grandmother was born when she was only 16. Her siblings went to boarding schools, so she was separated from them because she was the oldest. And that's, the reality for many is that they either went to these schools or they were separated from their families and not able to do anything to help them. So boarding schools were traumatic for everybody involved. Tribal colleges are healing environments, though, as opposed to the boarding schools, because tribal education is making a very big return through these TCUs. Kiara had said that at Nebraska Indian Community College, where she's studying tribal nation building, she's taught governance, sovereignty, and culture right alongside academics, and that it is education as empowerment. I really agree with this. I spoke at the Tribal Education Summit in Ada and presented on the environment and support that NICC has provided me throughout my entire education here, and particularly this semester with a pretty big family emergency that resulted in the death of our family matriarch. So that's not something that I would get at a non-TCU because NICC understands the cultural aspect and how healing it is to provide those cultural aspects and really focus on them and have them integrated into the education here. And TCUs aren't the only environments doing this. AHEC, ABLE, the Tribal College Journal, scholarships like the American Indian College Fund and Native Forward all have some sort of programming that aims to do this as well. When it comes to the electoral side, it's really just an access denied type of thing. Standard voting procedures continuously fail Native communities, and we know that Natives have historically been excluded from government policy and procedure until it benefits the government. This is shown through the Removal Act and the Dawes Act and not becoming citizens until 1924. But this exclusion does continue to today, extending to electoral participation. General discrimination and overall racism and poor behavior out of locals and the government leads to a distrust that discourages voters, whether that's a distrust of the government or a distrust of those at the voting centers. Non-traditional addresses for IDs and homelessness lead to people being completely unable to vote if they don't have what's considered a proper address. There's also language barriers because these things are not written in the traditional tribal languages. It's English and maybe Spanish and a few others if you're lucky. So that often leads those that are first language speakers of their tribal language to be unable to even understand what's going on. Further, there's a digital divide that disallows political literacy. So even when they can understand what they're reading, they can't research it because there's not access to internet on a lot of the remote and rural areas and reservations. If you can't research it, then you don't know what you're voting for. And so a lot of people opt just to not vote at all. And then, of course, geographical isolation and barriers when it comes to those that are living on the reservation or rural. In California, where I'm from, there's a polling center right outside of my apartment, in both directions, actually. So that's not even two places within 1 mile. But when you're living on the reservation or just in the middle of nowhere, it could be 20, 30, 40 or more miles to the next polling place. So then if you don't have access because you don't have a car or whatever's going on, then you're not likely to vote, especially when they complicate the absentee voting. Identity and self-determination is the active engine as far as nation building goes. I believe that sovereignty is only successful when governance systems are perceived as legitimate by the citizens. We see from tribal political dramas how true this is every day. And citizens will want to be more readily involved when they feel seen and supported by their tribe and their community, and when they feel like they belong. I feel like this also goes for non-natives living on tribal land as well. Uh, the McGirt ruling and Oklahoma's governor and his little Facebook fits really show, kind of the bigger picture about how non-natives perceive us and how they perceive our treaties and our sovereignty. And so when non-natives perceive native law as illegitimate, that just furthers their racist behavior because to them that's a justification. So this really impacts everybody. But of course, the youth and those that are supposed to be the voice of the people and to grow up and lead, as well as even our elders get impacted by some of the nasty things that get said and done. So providing a sense of belonging and fostering a strong sense of identity can combat this discouragement because when you have a strong sense of self, it's a lot easier to let those behaviors just roll off. Education as cultural revitalization happens through language preservation, reviving traditions, and nation building. It's not just about degrees, it's about revitalizing who we are. Thank you, Yakoki. I appreciate everybody in the class that did such good work for this, as well as Wainima for being an excellent instructor and for everybody giving me their time today.
Wainimi, you're
Awesome.
muted.
Sorry, I was just thanking this crew, these two people that introduced this to you and took you through this. And you can see the teamwork reflected through here. Most of the crew they showed you early on, who was all a part of this, but because they had other plans, these two stepped up and came through with that. And they knew that material as though it were their own. And it was. They all agreed that this is what it should be. So thank you for your time and attention, everyone. Okay, Megan, you're back.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bridget and Elaine, and all the research you guys did here. I see some good stuff in the chat. Yeah, lots of different comments there. So thank you guys very much. For our next section for today, and I did put an updated schedule in here just because we had to move some things around, is we will now be connecting with Intro to Sociology, which is for my class, so I'm very excited. And then following, we will have Intro to Native American Studies with Wainima, Omaha Culture and Tradition. And then following will be General Chemistry 1. So I also want to take note that it is about 4 o'clock here. We've had some amazing presentations, but if anyone does have to take off early, I did want to give folks an opportunity to share their feedback. We will stick on and do another presentation and then do a shorter break in a little bit here, because I know it is a Friday and folks have things going on, but please complete that if you are able, if you do need to take off early. So just wanted to give a shout out there. But yeah, with that being said, for Intro to Sociology, we had an assignment where students are kind of having this opportunity to combine what they learned in the class by integrating textbook material, reflecting on their own perspective. And then the final portion was for them to demonstrate where they see this in their community or create some type of project that shows where they're seeing community, or excuse me, where they're seeing the sociology. And so we had a really great group this semester. Some folks who had just really great perspectives, and Leanne was definitely one of those students. Always had some very interesting things to talk about in the class. And so I'm going to hand it over to Leanne here, and I
I'm
will
going to
be
attempt to share.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
awesome.
mind. I think I might have this figured out. So let me see here. Oh, I might not have. There we go. Hello, my name is Leanne Walker. Let me see, how do I get rid of this guy? There we go. My name is Leanne Walker, and I'm a member of the Omaha tribe. And before I got into sociology, this is what I knew about sociology. Absolutely nothing. My head was in the clouds. And let me see here. You might have to, oh, sorry guys. As you can see here, this is my work crew. The first half of the sociology course, I really started to see how socialization, culture groups, and even deviant behaviors shape the way people show up in everyday life, including at work. When I look at the picture of my coworker crew at Tractor Supply, I see how interconnected we all are despite coming from different nationalities and cultural backgrounds. One of the strongest connections I made between class and real life is how everyone carries a sense of a higher power in their own way. Um, our readings explain this in our sociology class. Sorry, you guys, I'm really, really nervous. I think one of the most important things about this work crew is that we all stood together. Oops. We all came together and stood together throughout my time there at Tractor Supply. And one of the most interesting things is that I've noticed while working at Tractor is that each and every one of us had our own trauma, and that trauma connected us, and we were able to see it in our talks together and how we were there for one another, and it kind of all fell into place, and it made one of the best crews throughout all of Tractor Supply. We were one of the top teams. Let me see. And this next one, this picture shows it reminds me of the social stratification and social inequality that I have faced coming off the reservation. Um, let's see. Specifically, talks about, I want to talk about the healthcare. So when I get sick or any of that, my tribal, like our urban Indian centers and Ponca Health is not available. And I was forced to go to like the ERs, any kind of other hospital, urgent cares, those types of things. And I wasn't prepared for the financial part of it. And that had a very huge impact for me, a negative one actually. Um, I wasn't able to do any of the things that I saw people around me doing, living in a city and coming off the reservation. So everybody had nice cars, everybody had houses, nice homes, great animals, and I wasn't prepared for that coming off the reservation. Instead, I accumulated so much debt. And with that being said, I recently got all my debt stuff fixed and now own a house. So that's some of this the stratification that I experienced. This next one is one of the most important things I have learned about social inequality is how gender, sex, and sexuality all intersect. Even though women are supposed to be equal, working in a male-dominant warehouse shows me otherwise. Because I am a woman, people make the assumption that I cannot do what I can and can't do physically. My sex, gender, shape how men talk to me and how they treated me. Um, all of these parts of who I am come together and influence my daily experience at work in creating challenges, but also strengths in how I move through that space. While working there, well, before I worked there at Tractor, being a woman in an all male workplace was very hard. But I also got to see the dysfunction in how a lot of different races treated me just because not only was I the only Native American there, but I was a woman, the only woman there. So I worked a crap ton harder and got um, very little comments or any kind of, I didn't get to move up or anything. I actually got fired from there due to an injury. But here at Tractor Supply, I am able to work well with all these other people. There are very few women there, as you can see, mostly men, and this is just my let down, put away crew. Um, where's my arrow? And the race and ethnicity part. One of the most important things I have learned in this class is the concept of microaggression, especially in relation to race and ethnicity. I never realized how often microaggressions come up in conversations I'm a part of today. This material helped me recognize what's not only what is not right and why it matters. Or since starting this assignment, I have been standing up for myself more and speaking out when something feels off. I have also been educating my coworkers about microaggressions and how they impact people. Doing this has shown my male coworkers that women can advocate for themselves and use work policies to hold everyone accountable to the rules that are meant to keep us safe. What I find most interesting is that many women do not realize how undermining certain comments can be. For example, when someone says, "Wow, you're really good at your job for being a woman." It might sound like a compliment, but it actually takes away from your skill and who you are. It reduces your accomplishments to your gender instead of recognizing your hard work and ability. Marriage and family. Um, Marriage is when two people come together and make a commitment, walk through life together side by side, no matter what it brings. Most of the time, the commitment brings children into the world. I have learned that marriage has existed for thousands of years, even though some people still look down on same-sex marriage. Today, it it is nothing new. Same-sex marriage was practiced years ago. There are records of them going back as far as 342 AD. Even though I am not married myself, I have gained a much bigger family through marriages of my children and the children I have adopted in life. These adoptions may not be legal in court, but it does not change the mother-child bond that we have built. What I find interesting is how often people say things like, "You guys aren't really family because you don't go through the courts," or "You're not blood related to me." To me, family is not about paperwork or blood. It's about love, commitment, and showing up for one another. This is my family, my mom, my grandma, my kids down there in the bottom. Can't see them because I don't know how to work the computer stuff right. Uh, but yeah, that's my family. That's actually something that I made for somebody who is two-spirit and is a coworker. She was facing some things at work, so I made that for her. Let me see here. Well, my thing doesn't want to change. Oh. These are actually my kids and my family. Some of them may not be together anymore, but that doesn't mean that the other person still isn't part of my family. I still call them son and daughter. This is actually a coworker I adopted, and she's amazing. These are all my children and my grandmother, my grandfather, they're married. Um, this is my family, and this is the reason why I try so hard to keep going forward. In conclusion, looking back on what everything I've learned in in this sociology course, I realized how much it has changed the way I see people, my workplace, and even myself. At first, I didn't think concepts like sociology, inequality, gender, race, and family would connect to my daily life so strongly, but they did. I started noticing how coworkers and I carry our own experiences, traumas, and cultural backgrounds into work every day, and how it shapes the way we talk, joke, support each other, and function as a team. Understanding things like roles, labeling, interconnectedness helped me see why our group at Tractor Supply works the way it does. It made me see my environment as more complex than I ever realized. And this class opened my eyes to things I didn't recognize in my own life until now, like how social stratification affects health care access, how gender and sexuality show up in the male-dominated workplace, and how microaggressions quietly shape conversations around race and ethnicity. Learning about these concepts helped me to understand my own experiences better and gave me the confidence to stand up for myself and educate others when needed. It also reminded me that family is not just defined by courts and blood, it is defined by love, commitment, and who we choose to give it to. Overall, this class did not just teach me sociology, it helped me understand people, relationships, and the bigger picture in a way that I can carry with me far beyond this semester. And that is it. I was so nervous and I flew through that, guys. So, guys, have any questions?
See a lot of clapping and a lot of hearts and all that good stuff. So yeah, I one of the things I especially appreciated about your presentations to Leanne is kind of that connection beyond the classroom, right? And addressing inequality, not just identifying it, but like what do we do about it? And so even talking with your coworkers about understanding microaggressions better and like integrating those things into the workplace, it sounds like such a really positive experience for your team moving forward. And also a really cool theme we've heard from some other things too, right? With radon, what do I do about this? Right, talking about different legislation and some others too. So, but yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And dang, that instructor better give you some extra credit because that was pretty good. So we'll see if we can make that happen. Awesome. Okay, so feel free to include any information in the chat too if you'd like to ask questions for any of our presenters. Our final few presentations we have, this has been one of the biggest showcases we've had so far. And that has been a really amazing thing. And I'm continuing to learn in each one of these. So thank you guys very much. So what you'll see for our final one is, excuse me, final ones, we'll have Intro to Native American Studies. So Wanima's students will jump in here. Culture, Omaha Culture and Tradition, and then General Chemistry with Dr. Megan Muri Mazariegos. So I will hand it over to Wynema, and she will touch base with you guys on the Intro to Native American Studies group with Amanda and Kara, and then Omaha Culture and Tradition with Okta. And then we'll jump right over to Megan. So Dr. Megan, excuse me. So yeah, just give me 1 second and I will stop sharing here.
Okay, thank you. I also have to make a correction. Kateri Petto will also be on with Okta. So they'll both be presenting on that last one. So this next one then is Kara Knudsen and gosh, where's my mind? It's numb by now. So they are going to talk to you about, and Amanda was here before. And so these two, again, working in groups, they can pick up from where those who are not here, but who contributed to make this a really awesome presentation. So these two are going to take us through this. And thank you so much, ladies. I enjoyed having you in class, and let's do this. All right, thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Wendy.
just run it off of yours and then.
Okay, I'll go ahead and pull it up. Sorry, everyone, give me one moment. And okay. Can everybody see that?
Looks good.
Sounds good. All right, so in Intro to Native American History, we were going over the books American Holocaust, Native America Discovered and Conquered by Robert J. Miller, and Pagans in the Promised Land by Stephen T. Newcomb. So we were just doing a basic reflection of what we had learned in this semester of Native American history. At the very beginning, I'd like to talk about what the elements of discovery are. They are the 10 factors that led into the justification of the doctrine of discovery, which was first created by Pope Eugene in Spain in the year 1436 under the name Inter Caetera. Some of the justifications of the doctrine of discovery first include first discovery, which were exclusive rights given to European nations upon first discovery of a land uninhabited by Christian people. Actual occupancy, which was the establishment of permanent dwellings upon the land. Preemption and European title, the assumption that since native nations conducted business with Euro-American people, that their native lands are only meant to be sold to the US. Sovereign and commercial rights, which was the acknowledgement of native nations having governmental authority over their people separate from the US, but the US still maintains exclusive right to trade with native nations only. Another justification of the doctrine of discovery included Christianity, the idea that Christians and the Catholic Church had a mandate from God that held their beliefs above other societies outside of their own and must be accepted as truth. And one of the other justifications of the doctrine of discovery was the idea of terra nullius, was the assumption or justification that vacant lands are plenty and for the taking if discovered by Christian people. A few other elements of discovery was the idea of discovery being ethnocentric and religious-centered ideas that hold European and Caucasian people superior to other cultures, religions, and races of people. Conquest, which is the overturning of property rights from a Native American people to European people through military victory, through Spanish, English, and American cultures. This could also be a just war to justify invasion and conquest is also known to be used as a term of art. So there are multiple meanings of the word conquest. Another element of discovery is plenary power, which is the interpretation by the US Supreme Court that Congress had exclusive right over Indian nations' intercourse and trade. The US demanded and has displayed an absolute power or plenary power over Indian nations and their commerce. Discovery elements were used through European international law, which established the claim that newly arrived European people to a quote unquote undiscovered land acquired property rights of Indian land without consent or knowledge from the indigenous inhabitants of that land. Discovery itself was considered an incomplete title of lands, and the rituals of discovery were performed to solidify a European country's claim to discovery. Discovery is still used and applied in law today, since the doctrine of discovery has been interpreted into US Supreme Court law through Johnson v. McIntosh. The discovery doctrine has also affected the outcomes of many events, including in 2007, Oneida People versus New York. Also in 1962 with President John F. Kennedy monetizing a hydroelectric project, building large dams along the Missouri River, infringing on tribal sovereignty over the tribe's waters and resources. And it also caused 50,000 acres of reservation land to flood, becoming Lake Ojai. In 2016 as well, it was widely known that the Standing Rock Sioux tribe also had their own battles with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers during the North Dakota Access Pipeline protests. The origins of the doctrine of discovery European powers approached the world through a Christian framework that divided societies into Christian and non-Christian, shaping how they judged other nations. A series of papal bulls asserted that non-Christian nations did not possess full political sovereignty and therefore lacked equal standing with Christian states. Those declarations formed the basis of a European dominance model, giving Christian nations the authority to claim territories already inhabited by indigenous peoples. This mindset blended religion, politics, and emerging international law, turning a religious worldview into legal justification for colonization. As a result, the doctrine of discovery became the foundation for how European empires rationalized land seizures throughout the Americas. We could see this being adopted into US policy. After independence, the United States adopted many of the ideas rooted in the doctrine of discovery and applied them to its own policies towards indigenous nations. Early United States law treated tribes as having only a right of occupancy, meaning that they could only live on their homelands, but were not recognized as holding full legal title. This also meant that the federal government claimed an underlying ownership of all indigenous land, placing tribes in a subordinate legal position from the very beginning. This framework restricted the scope of tribal sovereignty, limited the ability of Native nations to negotiate, govern, and or control their land on equal footing. And these early legal assumptions shaped westward expansion and influenced how the US justified removing tribes from the territories. Through Johnson versus McIntosh in 1823 and its lasting impact, we see that the 1823 Supreme Court case firmly established the doctrine of discovery as a core principle of US property law. Chief Justice John Marshall ruled that European discovery gave ultimate title to the United States, leaving tribes with only a limited right of occupancy. And this decision declared that indigenous nations could not sell their land to private individuals, reinforcing the idea that their ownership rights were incomplete. The ruling has never been overturned, allowing the doctrine of discovery to continue shaping federal Indian law and US legal structures surrounding land and sovereignty. Its legacy still influences how tribal authority is defined and restricted today, demonstrating how deeply the doctrine remains embedded in the legal system. The book American Holocaust showed us the modern impact of colonization in tribal nation building and tribal sovereignty. Through the Spanish conquest of the Americas, discovery of America in 1492. In Stannard's novel, it gives us a historical insight that began with the quote-unquote discovery of Americas in 1492 and Spanish conquest. The European colonization followed, manifesting as disease, deliberate genocide, and decimation of indigenous peoples starting in the Caribbean and eventually the entirety of the Americas by other European nations. Early English settlement. English colonization mirrored their European counterparts with the Spanish, with their settlements on the East Coast. Example, during the Pequot War of 1637, where Puritan Christian settlers burned and slaughtered villages. You could also see this with forced removals and our reservation systems. This pattern continued to force removals from ancestral lands, and the reservation systems were created to control indigenous people and make room for white settlers. Not only was there physical violence, but cultural genocide as well. Christian children were forced into boarding schools, stolen from their families, and forced to assimilate into what would become modern-day Western civilization. Another example is the mass hanging of the Dakota 38 and 2 and forced removal of Insanti, Dakota from Minnesota. The impact of historical genocide today, the effects of European contact. Hundreds of years later, we are still utilizing the treaty's contracts. This country still lives under the same political powers and structures created before and during the colonization of the United States. Systemic racism. Indigenous peoples experience higher rates of poverty stemming from reliance on the US government. Intergenerational trauma. On average, Native Americans experience higher rates of alcoholism, suicide, and violence against women. Modern colonization. The Western ideology remains today, and its effects are global. The genocide of indigenous peoples is prevalent in modern political affairs. Another example of this is the war in Gaza and the extermination of Palestinian people in Gaza. Modern sovereignty, resilience, and decolonizing. building and developing sustainable economies, practicing our inherent rights to self-governance and the care of our land, also incorporating cultural beliefs into policies, creating policies that benefit our communities in our tribal governments, education, the establishment of tribal colleges and tribal scholarships have encouraged our Native communities to educate themselves, and the opportunities provide the education and tools needed to preserve in Western society. Continuing cultural practices, there are several organizations dedicated to cultural revitalization, such as the Braveheart Society in Lake Andes, South Dakota, as well as Sacred Return in Denver, Colorado. And I don't know if you wanted to do the next one, Amanda.
Yeah, that's fine. Synthesis of Native American history. We've got tribal governance, colonial and federal policies, systematically fractured indigenous governance through leader removal, imposition of external legal frameworks such as treaties, allotment programs, assimilationist education, and doctrines denying full political personhood. These measures were designed to erode decision-making authority and undermine land-based sovereignty. We got land rights. The land seizure served as the structural engine of colonial expansion. Legal instruments, including treaties, statutes, and court rulings, combined with extra legal violence to produce widespread dispositions and long-term economic exclusion. These actions resulted in poverty, intergenerational trauma, and fundamentally reshaped societal structures. We had cultural preservation, settler colonial policies, explicitly targeted cultural eradication through boarding schools, prohibition of ceremonies, and forced assimilation. We got language revitalization. Recent revitalization initiatives have reintroduced indigenous languages into educational curriculum, fostering cultural resurgence and restoring traditional ceremonies. These efforts affirm the enduring strength of Indigenous identity. Environmental justice. European settler conceptions of land as a commodity fueled extractive practices and environmental degradation. In contrast, Indigenous worldviews emphasize reciprocal stewardship guided by ecological knowledge and principles of sustainable use, taking only what is necessary to sustain life and preserve balance. Also got data sovereignty. Although foundational texts predate the digital era, their insights on control, narrative, and legal structures underscore the authority over knowledge, its collection, use, and beneficiaries essential to self-determination. As Newcomb's analysis illustrates, legal and epistemic authority profoundly shape Indigenous communities. Nation-building constructs. Contemporary nation-building efforts include education reforms that decolonize curriculum by integrating tribal history, language, and law, alongside expanding tribal-run schools and higher education partnerships. Additional strategies encompass economic sovereignty, cultural enterprises, and land-based economies, reinforcing self-determination and sustainable development. So this is my part. Native America no more. And as you can see right here, we've got the picture of the manifest destiny that is portrayed all throughout US history. In this picture, you will see the Minnesota state flag. I am also in Carlton's class, and my presentation my paper for him is about Minnesota and the manifest destiny and the doctrine of discovery based off of this flag. If you can see, that is highlighted up here. This was a poem that was written by a lady in Minnesota. I gotta remember what her name is. Oh goodness. Well, her name is Margaret. But in there, you can see that this poem was connected to the state flag that Minnesota flew for so many years up until recently. And on the yellow parts, you can see where I highlighted, it says, "The white man claims them now. The symbols of his course are here. 'Tis the rich against the poor and the strong against the weak. We need thy noble rivers, thy prairies green and wide. 'Tis by his rugged hunting ground beats the relentless sea. We claim his noble heritage in Minnesota's land. Must pass with all of his untold truth, untold wealth to the white man's grasping hand." Apparently that moved somewhere because that's not where that's supposed to be. And there you can also see, there's multiple spots in here that goes over and talks about how they knew what they were doing to Native Americans, and how they didn't care. I mean, it blatantly states right there. Um, right here, you can see that Alexander Ramsey, who was the governor of Minnesota, how it will state his desire for the seal that emphasized peaceful coexistence between white settlers and Native Americans. His design, which included the Native family and a ceremonial pipe, was a response to the need for a seal to endorse the new territorial government documents. The seal design was later modified by Henry Sibley, who added an axe in the plow. The seal's design and motto were intended to symbolize the eternal friendship between the two cultures, but it also represented the settler imagery.
Mhm.
So you can tell that's completely indoctrinated
Mhm.
bullcrap. Excuse my words. But right here you can see indoctrination of Alexander Ramsey that proves otherwise. Ramsey was one of the main people that played a key role in many of the forest and broken treaties created in Minnesota, which led to 24 million acres stolen. And that it brought down, so it was 13 million for the Dakota and 11 million from the Ojibwe. He oversaw the trials that led to the Dakota 38+2 hangings, and ultimately led to the removal of the Dakota, which is still a federal law in place today. So tell me how that was peaceful. Where did the native go, and how is it still affecting us today? From the Indian Removal Act of 1830 to the broken treaty still happening today, Indian country is still under attack. What once was an entire nation of only indigenous people has been reduced by 97% to our population just accounting for 3%. With us still facing the highest amount of poverty, suicide rates, drug addiction and alcoholism, diabetes, obesity, among other health issues. The government came to kill us, and that's what they are still doing. While we claim tribal sovereignty, we have laws in place that show that no matter what, the U.S. federal government is still in control of us. Laws preventing tribal nations from prosecuting non-natives on reservations makes it easy for our children and loved ones to keep going missing. While the government doesn't even bat an eye, or worse, helps to contribute to the missing, like the Twilight tours in Canada. But we can't just blame the American government when we also have our own tribal government or our own tribal nations that are ripping off their people as well. We try to joke when we talk about council members only helping their own families, but it's not a lie, and it still does happen today. They seem to forget that when put into those positions that they are supposed to look out for all tribal natives. Instead, we live in a land of greed brought to us by the Europeans, where to this day it still affects many of us. So while the government might have tried to systematically erase us from the entire continent, ultimately they failed. Even education after the 1890s tried to remove us from everything besides the stereotypes and propaganda spewed. But tribal nations today have finally started to put their foot down and say no more. We are buying our lands back. We are taking steps to relearn cultural practices and languages that were once outlawed until 1978, only 48 years ago. We are expanding Native businesses and education on and off the reservations, and we are getting involved in American law and politics while electing Indigenous officials who are now standing with our people. Like Wainiba always talks about in class, we are still here. And this picture I've got up here is of my two students when we attended the ACES conference up in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. That was a good presentation. I really liked how you brought it all together. And that again reflects teamwork and a lot of a sense of, so dare I say the word, Kara, tribalism, our connectedness and resilientness. So thanks so much. Awesome job, ladies. Thank you. The next one, I don't know, are we next again, Megan?
Yep. We got you guys next with Omaha culture and tradition.
Okay, so we'll segue now into Omaha culture and tradition. And again, teamwork here, working together. Two people are the only ones left. Again, others sort of dropped off because they had other things coming up and had to take care of family issues. So we are going to be presented to by Kateri Petto from Omaha, Nebraska. And who's the other one? Gosh, I can't even remember. It's late. You and Octa from Lincoln. Okay. Okay. And it is late, so if you kind of want to just show us some slides, read the main titles, and then kind of leave it up for a little bit, let people see it, then we'll move on because we got another one after us. Don't want to rush you, but yeah. Thank you.
And then I was going to ask if Octa was in the meeting because I want to make sure to spotlight if so.
She is.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay. And Octa, do you have a different name on your?
She's on as Renee.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, we will get you a spotlight here. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, are we okay to get started?
Yes, yep. I will pull that up in just a second here. So go for it.
Okay, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I want to apologize. I'm home with my kids, and so if you hear crying or screaming in the background, that is why. But Ababli te Uwibla Tominke Ajaji Wawitate Mi Ishta. So hello and thank you for inviting me to be here to present. My name is Dr. Kateri Hinman Pedo, and I am Umaha Ho-Chunk in Seneca. And
Are you a
Hey.
doctor?
Can you go watch Sesame Street, baby? Okay. And today we'll be just showing an overview of our group project for the Omaha Culture and Traditions course. So these were our stated learning outcomes for the course that we used as the framework for our presentation. And so today we'll be providing a brief overview of Omaha clans and societies as presented by one of our classmates, Judith Dudley. Oh, okay. Okay, you okay? Sorry. And then Octa will be presenting over the sacred pole, and then I will close us out with the role of women in the Omaha tribe and the importance of the masculine-feminine balance. So again, these slides were designed and researched by our colleague Judith Dudley. And just because we're short on time, I'll just do a brief overview. But clans of the Omaha tribe, so our Hulaga was divided into two different divisions, the Earth and the Sky people, with 5 clans in each respective side. The Earth people were responsible for the physical welfare of the people, whereas the Sky clans were responsible for the spiritual aspects of everyday life for the Omahas. There were past cultural practices and traditions of the clans, like certain taboos that people belonging to certain clans would have to abide by. For example, the Nkesibe having to avoid eating certain parts of the buffalo. There also were specific haircuts for certain clans and particular rights that were awarded to people of those clans or gens. So again, this is the division of the Hulaga or the different clan structure. So we have the Sky People and the Earth People, and this was how the tents were set up according to that clan membership. And because we're short on time, I'm just gonna keep moving. And then there also were certain social societies of the Omaha people. Guys, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so just again, for the sake of time, I'm going to turn it over to Akta to present on the sacred pole. Oh.
Thank you, Kateri. Let's see here. Kateri? Next slide, please. The sacred pole is known by several names. I have three here: Umahati, Venerable One, and Maha. Maha is the first in real Omaha. He is a provider and protector of the Umaha people. He was central to the tribe's ceremonies during their buffalo hunting days. He exists for tribal unity. The sacred pole was discovered by the son of an Omaha chief. The boy described the sacred pole as a wonderful tree, and the chief described it as a tree stands burning. It was seen burning only at night, and it stood near a lake called Lake Andes. It is made of cottonwood and is 6 foot, 10.677 inches in length. The sacred pole was never laid upon the ground when brought into the Huthunga. It was at a place at a 45-degree angle. Members of the Honga clan kept this sacred pole in its ceremonies. Next slide, please. The Nkesibe, the Buffalo clan, are the keepers of the pipes. The sacred pipes with reddened horsehair are painted horizontally and on either side of the door of the sacred tent. Nkesibes have taboos of touching or wearing red, of not eating of the buffalo above the first rib, and not touching charcoal, or their hair would turn gray. Nkesibe's sub-clan was in charge of the two tribal pipes, and they were always kept together. The major responsibility of Nkesibe was that of providing internal peace and order among the people. They sang the marching songs and set the pace. Another obligation was that of distributing the buffalo meat fair and equitably. Next slide, please. Past cultural practices and traditions of the sacred pole consist of anointing of the sacred pole, singing of ritual songs, painting of umahati, feeding of umahati, sacred white buffalo hide, and the sacred pipes. Next slide, please. The present cultural practices and traditions of the sacred pole. Doran Morris Jr. is the keeper of the sacred pole, and he visits him at the Nebraska History Museum in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Hedawachi was a warrior's dance, and it was a covenant to give thanks. However, the powwow circle now is more into competition, and some of them may not know why they dance. Next slide, please. Disappeared cultural practices and traditions of the sacred pole. Chief Yellow Smoke was known by many names. Shudanazi is what his position was, keeper of the sacred pole. Manchu Nonbe means two grizzlies, and he was the last keeper of the sacred pole. who participated in the ceremonies of the sacred pool. In 1888, it was to be buried with him, and they cannot destroy these sacred items. So he chose to let LaFlèche take it to the Peabody Museum for your safekeeping. Next slide, please. It's women's roles and the masculine feminine balance presented by Dr. Kateri Petto. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute myself. So yes, now I will be discussing women's roles, what we know from our text from LaFlèche and what we've discussed in our course throughout the semester. So women's role in the Hooliga. So I think it's important as we read LaFlèche to really understand that colonization really diminished the role of women. So going through the text, there's really not a lot of detail about the role of women within the traditional Umaha society. And so that role really isn't well defined. Most of what we know is really viewing women in the role of caretaking and maintaining the home. But again, because this was recorded in the late 1800s, it's important to acknowledge the way that women were viewed by Western society. When we look at the Hooliga specifically, we talked about the division of the sky people and the earth people. And so that how we viewed our Hooliga was really embodies that masculine feminine balance because we say Father Sky and Mother Earth. So again, knowing how integral that masculine feminine balance was to everyday life for the Umaha people, I think we can kind of draw from that to really understand that our women did play a vital role that maybe was downplayed in how things were recorded by Alice Fletcher and Frances LaFlèche. But from their text, in reference to the Hooliga, they say the Hooliga was regarded as the dwelling of the entire tribe, presented the type that was to be reproduced in the dwelling of each member of the tribe, wherein were to be united the masculine and feminine forces drawn from two distinct groups or regions, a union symbolized in the Hooliga by the union of the earth people and the sky people. And again, just for the sake of time, I won't spend too much time going over Omaha kinship. But again, even though we are a patrilineal society and that we would follow the clans of our fathers, I just wanted to kind of elaborate on that, that I guess doesn't diminish the role of women. We also discussed in class an article from Century Magazine that was written by Alice Fletcher describing the home life among the Omaha Indians. And that article really goes into detail about the role of women as far as being caretakers of the children, and really talking about the ways that they would make sure that their children conducted themselves properly when at social gatherings, while in ceremony, making sure that they were well kept and cared for. And when we talked about the governance structure, we talked about the selection of dark chiefs and how the men who were seeking seeking to be appointed to these councils would have to present 100 gifts, and really acknowledging that in order for them to be able to provide those 100 gifts really took having a strong Umaha Wa'u running the household and really being there to make that possible. And when they went through the selection process, it also looked at the values and integrity of that man that was seeking that appointment. And I think that, again, that in and of itself is a reflection of the woman that was there supporting the man and supporting the home. Also in the turning of the child ceremony, from the text, we can draw out that the women were responsible for providing those gifts to provide the ceremony for their child for protection. And then again, we kind of glazed over since it's just Octa and I presenting today, but Judith talked a little bit more in depth about the different social societies and secret societies. But again, it's said in LaFlèche that women did not hold any like formal office. But I think that there were other ways that women supported these roles, even as things looking at things like how we gathered our medicines, that knowing that a lot of that work to provide those ceremonies and really have that day-to-day life was wouldn't have been possible without women in their role in day-to-day life for the Omaha people. So I really liked this quote from LaFlèche, but the Omaha woman worked hard. Upon her depended much of the livelihood of the people, the preparation of food, of shelter, of clothing, and the cultivation of the garden patches. In return, she was regarded with esteem, her wishes respected, and while she held no public office, many of the movements and ceremonies of the tribe depended on her timely assistance. In the family, she was generally the center of much affection. There were many happy Indian families in which affection bound all hearts closely together. So I thought that though there's not a lot of strong reference of the role of women from the text, I thought that that was pretty powerful as far as thinking about the family structure and really how our women were the backbone of that. And again, I think it's important as we move forward and reclaim our cultural identities that we, I guess, give women that same respect that maybe has been lost with colonization and how things have been recorded from the past. In this picture is of the Stabler sisters. I believe it's Eunice and Margie Stabler. And this came from the photos of the 1915 Hidewache by Anna Sloan. And part of our stated learning objectives was looking at past traditions of the Omaha people and really examining how cultural continuity moves forward in present day and what cultural strands that we've still hung on to. And again, for the sake of time, I won't go into too big of detail, but one of the things that we discussed was the Mark of Honor. And there's not a lot of information recorded about the Mark of Honor from the text, but from oral tradition and things that I've heard from other Umaha people was that the Mark of Honor was a women's society that was responsible for helping to care for children or helping young mothers or those that maybe were struggling or had lost like the father to war or during hunting or what have you. That this was a society of women that helped kind of bridge that gap for our families and the children. And so the only thing that LaFlèche really mentions about the Mark of Honor was that it was appointed to daughters of the Dark Chiefs. And again, that the idea that these daughters would have been raised in a very honorable family. So again, bearing that mark that they would be women of integrity. And so again, bringing that to present day, we talked about the Mark of Honor youth home that was established in Macy, as well as the role that our women take today as far as caring for our children. And then I'll just hit on the last point. One of the past traditions that we discussed, or that was in LaFlèche, was the process of courtship and marriage. So they talked about how a young Omaha man, maybe a young Omaha woman, just at community events or at ceremonies, and would kind of express an interest in the young woman and would see if it was reciprocated. And they discussed the like composing of love songs to again express that interest. And just kind of the process of traditional courtship and how that would lead to elopement where the two would run off. The young man would present the woman to, or the young girl to his father to say that this is who he intended to marry. And then from there, they would bring gifts to the young bride's family. Okay. And then if they accepted her, then they would the bride's family would reciprocate those gifts to the husband's family. And so I thought that was really sweet, just again, thinking about our traditional ways of courtship and how we kind of see that in present day, or people that maybe meet from different cultural engagements, also like roundy love songs that we hear. Yeah, but some of the changes that we talked about too was just maybe not following our kinship or clans as strictly as we had in the past, just because of different changes to family structures, as well as, just marrying into different tribes, that since we were a patrilineal society, that if your father was not Omaha, then whose clan do you follow? So that kind of changes the dynamic of that following of the traditional clanship. So, all right, that was a very quick overview of what we presented. I think our presentation in class was like over 40 minutes. But again, for the sake of time and my screaming children, I will wrap it up. But I just wanted to, again, just express my gratitude for being able to participate this semester, and my gratitude to Professor Morris for just providing the opportunity to learn and come together and discuss. And yeah.
Thank you, Kateri, and thank you, Okta, for taking all of this on. I really do appreciate the synthesis of pulling it all very quickly together for everyone in the sake of time. But thank you so much for being willing to participate and to do your presentation of your learning. Great job. Thank you. We're done, Megan.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. You definitely did an amazing job condensing that if you were at 45 minutes before. Holy smokes. But really great highlights. I know I learned a lot here. So, yeah, I see some comments in the chat here too. So good stuff going on. So I know we're right at about 5 o'clock. I'm going to see if Dr. Megan Miri Mazariegos is here. I know she had something going on. Megan, are you still around?
Yeah, I can give a 30-minute spiel for us to wrap it up. No, the short and sweet. So now everybody, thank you for joining today. The student Carla Olson, she was unable to attend today. However, I would just like to share very briefly a little bit of her work. So a part of the general chemistry class for the semester is to share and kind of examine what are real world applications of chemistry. I think a lot of people probably think of chemistry and they're probably like, yuck, I don't want to take that class. But the beautiful thing about chemistry is that chemistry is essentially what all of us are made out of. It is, primarily the study of the movement of electrons, which is that movement of electrons that causes electricity, and it's actually what gives us life. And so really looking at chemistry is looking at life at a very molecular level, but it's also something that we encounter every day. And so one of the students in the class, Carla Olson Griffin, one of her projects was actually looking at chemistry and makeup. And just very briefly, like looking at, this is something that many of us use to kind of correct certain appearances or make more, to spice it up a little bit, make it more, like flamboyant. It's always fun. And so looking at that, that's something that chemistry actually goes and is a huge component of making sure that the chemicals that are in the makeup are agreeable with you. And so from there, I'll call it good. Thank you everybody for listening, and woo, great job to all the students. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I have a lot of follow-up questions on that because I just got some new makeup here for holidays. So, but yeah, thank you guys all very much for coming. I know that, this presentation has had, oh my gosh, 4 hours of amazing material. And so, it gets to be like a long day in that sense, but at the same time, it's a rejuvenating kind of energy, right? So what I would ask you guys to do is share your feedback in this survey above, different ideas you may have, right, for how we can revamp things, and then of course how you may be able to use some of this information as well. So I'm very glad to have everybody here. I'm very glad to have just amazing presentations. Low key, this might have been one of my very favorite showcases. So thank you very much to all of our students. And if you guys have any questions or are interested in, connecting in the future on this, please let us know. I will send out, let's see, I have it in the chat here, but there is just 6 really quick questions for your feedback. in the chat here. So there we go. Okay, thank you all very much. And I will stick on just in case anybody has questions or issues accessing the chat. Thank you.